Oh boy, boys. We're short tonight, aren't we? Is Janice here? She's here.
Jay, you need to call off sick too.
I was gonna say.
Bruce,
I don't know about
I
Tammy.
have this tonight too to read, that proclamation. So,
8:30.
Did you say 2-minute warning?
Well, if Tammy doesn't show, we won't be able can't do any, can't vote, so it'll be shorter.
I'm gonna say,
Can't
it,
say when.
looking at this, it's all, you know, reading, because we can't go to the,
It won't be long tonight. I
we
don't
won't be
think.
able to waive the rules,
Yeah,
right?
if Tammy's not here,
It's gonna be a short meeting.
yeah, it'll be short.
I don't know if she's coming.
Yeah, if Tammy's not here.
8, 9, you know.
It's I sent to your phone.
Hi. Praise the Lord.
Oh, you want this rain?
Yes, we want the rain, girl.
Well, we want it when we're in bed, not now.
Oh,
At least that's what I wanted.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I haven't melted yet.
Thank you.
He's not gonna be
If
here.
I need to say something, feel free to.
no.
Yeah, she said she might not be here.
She's not.
Wake up, man.
Okay.
To amend that to include the highway.
Thank you, sir.
Is that?
So it's gonna be a short meeting.
Now, 6:15, we're gonna call the committee meetings to order. First committee meeting is for community, employee and community relations, and the chair and ranking chair aren't here, so we're gonna call on Mr. Severance to take that committee.
Yes, welcome. We are going to discuss a couple of ordinances that are on the agenda for this evening, specifically ordinance 2025-29 and 2025-31, and I will promptly turn this over to Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, Mr. Severns. Yeah, as you noted, we have ordinance 2025-29. That is an ordinance to provide for the salary of certain elected officials, specifically council, president, and members of council. You can see, if you turn in your packets to ordinance 25-29, or 2025-29, you will see 26, 27, 28, and 29, those years. There was a slight, very modest increase of council's pay going up, basically just to keep track with the required growth of a PERS credit each month, each year. That's pretty standard for what council has done in the past. And I think that has been the desire of council. This is going through 3 readings. The administration has not heard any comments on this, and it received its first reading at the last committee, or at the last council meeting. This does need passed by the election date. So council has to set its pay before the next council takes office. The administration would like, between both HR and the auditor's office, would like this in place. That way we can have everything set up and ready to go with a little bit of advance time. But can't do anything tonight as you are missing 2 members. So this will apparently receive another reading. Is there any questions on that? And this is for your sake and the sake of the community in hearing this. Is there any questions on this particular
I don't
piece
have,
of legislation?
I just have a comment. I did talk to Mrs. Woods about this a while back, and to me it made sense that we would pass these for the next 4 years as the overs and minimum. That just makes sense to me. And then if we see that that's not the right thing, or if it changes, we could always bring a piece of legislation back, but this does kind of make sense to me.
Okay. Additionally, tonight you're going to get a first reading on ordinance 2025-31. Sorry. Yes, 2025-31. That's an ordinance to provide for the salary of certain elected officials of the city of Mount Vernon, specifically the city treasurer. In the past, the city treasurer's position has required, since this is a statutory city under the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code, have been, they'll just say minimal. But that has changed very recently. And I will say with Mr. Stuller's, now of course, nothing in the law has changed, but with Mr. Stuller, he's been a very active participant, not only with the income tax department, but also in partnership with the administration, with our budget process, and with the auditor's office in our investments. This year we will yield right at or just over $1 million in investments, making the taxpayers' money work for them, which is it's a record year, and that's something that we should have been doing years prior, and he's really taken an active role in that, and that's something that we want to encourage moving forward, obviously, and that's really something, as the city banker, that's something that the city treasurer should do, and we should encourage that more. So what we did, we established last year a compensation review commission, or committee, compensation review committee, commission. Yep. And we studied that, and that commission met, looked at some of the data from other communities, and you have it in here, that recommendation. The HR director submitted those things. There's some communities like the city of Athens, the city of Chillicothe, the city of Lancaster. So really what you're seeing here is similar to those. It's actually quite modest compared to some of those. And with the MORPC data that we have today, Very modest, a $15,000 annual, essentially a base salary with a 1.75% yearly increase, which is pretty on target. In the past, the city treasurer's salary was basically set about the same that council's was. So not much of an increase even now, but a little bit more elevated as the city treasurer has different duties and is involved, I'd say, on a weekly basis now.
So that committee met?
That committee met.
Compensation committee met.
And
That's- This is their recommendation.
And you have those notes in here. And Councilwoman Hager was at that meeting.
Yep.
Do you have any questions there?
How did you feel about it, ma'am?
I felt like it was extremely fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Now we're ready for the CBA.
Yes, and this is nothing more than a next step in the check box process. We've talked about adding a position that is essentially, and Chief, if you'd like to come up and talk about this for a second, but this is that community risk reduction position, inspector and educator, or assistant fire marshal position, if you will. The official title would be Community Risk Reduction Inspector and Educator, or
It's a long one.
yeah, you'll run out of breath at that
I have
point.
to abbreviate it.
Yeah, but you know, we talked about this in council committees before. Talked about how we are now, you know, recuperating some of those fees that we've been doing for free over the course of, you know, years. And we took that job description, council approved that. We took the job description to the Civil Service Commission. They approved that. Now, since this would be a union position, now I have to sit down with the union and sign an MOU to make sure that we amend the union contract, but you have to give me the permission to do so. So that's what this is. So as soon as that is approved by council, then we can make that agreement with the IAFF, and then we just move forward. So that's all this is. So, yeah, do you want to go ahead and just basically give them a rundown of what
Yeah,
we've talked about in the past?
Yeah, thank you for the support. It really shows, think of our safety of our community, and the townships we cover and everything with, because this person will be in doing our business inspections, our annual business inspections. So important for our businesses, our patrons, everybody coming into our community, and shopping, and for Mount Vernon, we want to make it as safe as possible. So the fire marshal, his duties will be more of our new construction, as the director said, our fee schedule, monitoring that. This person is, like I said, is going to be mainly into our businesses, doing those annual fire inspections, and a lot of education stuff, our fire extinguisher classes, and so on. So it is important. We have went through civil service. Job descriptions have been approved through civil service. So this is the next step, and we're hoping for that support so we can move forward probably by maybe the middle to the end of next month or so, starting to put in for some internal applications for it.
You have
Any questions?
for the administration or for the chief?
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Severance?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, we're going to adjourn that committee meeting. We're going to move now to the Knox Public Health Contract with Finance. That's for you.
Why, thank you. Zach, would you please come up?
While he's coming up, I'll just go ahead. You know, we budget for this every year. It's part of that 101-3600, that miscellaneous section in the general fund budget. This is a bit more than what we annually budget for, so I wanted to make sure Zach had an opportunity to come in here and talk about what it is that not only his office does, but how we work between you know, the city and KPH. And I can just say from, you know, my point of view, with code enforcement, I know with probation, with the police department, we've really been tackling some interagency, multi-jurisdictional things even recently that has required us to really communicate and really beef up that cooperation. So I think this is an important thing for us to talk about, to understand, and to fund. And knowing what it would cost without them is even better. It's one of those old cliches of, I'd hate to know what we would have to pay if they weren't there, right? So,
That's fair.
yeah.
How much more has it gone up?
Well, let's let him talk about how valuable he is first, and then we'll talk about the old trickaroo there.
So I guess we could just cut straight to that chase.
Yeah, talk turkey.
Yeah, so it's about 25,000.
Yeah.
The existing contract for year 2025 is 68,000, Tanner.
So yeah, it's about I think we're about 67,000 somewhere in there right now. And Councilwoman, to your point, this is essentially covering one sanitarian, at KPH. And you have about how many on staff?
Yeah, so in regards to our environmental health specialists that go out and conduct the investigations, for example, we do have 6 on staff. So what I did is I took the 5 outside of administration, my director that holds that licensure, identified what that medium salary would be, and then what that full French package is. So 20% of the coverage of just the environmental health specialists and training, that program in itself does not factor in any type of administrative costs for health commissioner or directors of nursing, infectious disease and control. It also does not have anything to do with our epidemiologists or our outreach programs. So this is strictly, I took one FTE and said, we really need to get to the point with this contract that it's covering for one of these employees that are out, I would argue, daily within the jurisdiction of the city. It's something that I brought forward to administration 3 years ago. I said, this contract really needs to get to the point where it's covering one of those staff members. At its full package. So that's why you've seen the difference, and I'm happy to show the breakdown at $26.25 an hour with PRS, Medicare, workers' comp, and health insurance, puts it at $44.87 on the hour, which puts you just over $93,000 annually to onboard that employee and to retain them for that year. Contract, again, looking at that as a combined general health district with the city and the county, which combined back in the early 80s, which I would argue is definitely a smart thing. No reason to continue to duplicate those services. We want to be efficient with our government. So that's how we came up with those numbers in full transparency. I think it's my stance of this, professionally and personally. I think it's very conservative when you look at what we're providing for the price. To Tanner's point, per our 3709, the higher revised code, you need to have at a minimum the triad: health commissioner, an environmental health director, and a director of nursing to have your own general health district. Obviously, you're not going to do a whole lot with just 3 positions, but $93,000 versus what it would cost to onboard those 3 individuals to get hardly any of the programming. Return on investment for our taxpayers, for our community, is without a doubt a good partnership. And that's all I'm looking for, is just to be able to say, hey, they're covering an FTE. We got an FTE in that jurisdiction on a daily basis.
Any questions?
And clearly, Tanner, this is something you're on board with, you've hammered out, and it sounds fair to the administration.
And we've discussed some of these things as we increase our value, and we don't ever want to be seen as, trying to, shortchange a partner agency. We want to be that active partner, but simultaneously, we want to show to, our taxpayers is, there's a significant increase of what we have been paying to what we're paying now. So what's the difference, right? Where's added value coming from? And already we can see, I just point to in the last couple weeks, we've seen several instances of code enforcement where we've had to identify multiple properties where a lot of resources have, with these guys involved, we've had to identify these things. And, I've looked around at the different agencies and different departments within the city that aren't even under the purview of safety service. And we've talked about the value that KPH brings specifically there. So we've got to tell those stories, and we've got to talk about how, when we do utilities projects, we have these conversations. When we do code enforcement, we have these conversations, and they're there. So we have to be showing, to the public and to our, city council, when we are executing things that we, both the public and our boards expect us to execute, we're showing that partnership and showing that the dollars that we're investing are going where they expect us to put them. So, and I think they have been, and this continued investment will only prove that out.
I appreciate the win-win and working with the partners. I think that's something we really need to be focusing on as a city. Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
You finished?
Yes, I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move
Thank you,
down
Zach.
to Utilities
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Committee with the city aggregation utilities contract.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As you said, we're going to be talking about the city aggregation utility contracts, and I believe we have someone here to talk about that this evening.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being here, sir.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. My name is Mark Fry. I'm the president of Palmer. Can I pass out some
Please.
materials?
I'm sorry, President what?
I'm the president of Palmer Energy.
So, and I will go ahead and tee this up if you will allow me. So, in, I believe, 2008, the city of Mount Vernon voted to aggregate utilities. So that's gas and electric utilities.
Thank you.
And still to this day, people have a choice if they would like to join the city's aggregation or if they would like to opt out. Now, it is an automatic opt-in. You are opted in, and then you can choose to opt out. Over the past, over a decade now, we have been with one particular company. That company focused their primary business was private
industry.
yeah, private industry aggregation. And we locked in, and more specifically, we locked in a rate about 5 years ago. We had a 5-year rate where, and I won't steal all of Mr. Fry's thunder here, but we locked in a rate at a time where rates were particularly low. And even actually a year after that, they were even a little lower. Sure. And we were lucky to do that then because rates have since then gone, I think the technical term is bananas high. All right? Yeah. So that is now going to expire
When?
this year, the end of this year. So after that expires, we are then, out to bid essentially, right?
Correct.
So we are looking at ways to reduce the explosion of those costs. And the mayor and I looked around at a lot of the recommendations, and knowing that we have the aggregation power at our fingertips here, we wanted to utilize our OML partners, our CCAO partners, and the best way to do that was utilize, public entity pooling, the true power of aggregation here. And that's how we came up with these guys here. And I'll let Mr. Fry with Palmer tell you how that will work. So take it away.
Thank you very much. And good evening again. My name again is Mark Fry. I'm the president of Palmer Energy Company, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. As Tanner indicated, I wish I had better news, but unfortunately your electric supply contract for their aggregation pricing expires at the end of your customers and who are participating in the aggregation program for electricity at the end of their December bill, which is somewhere, because bills are at every meter cycle, there's 21 billing cycles every billing month. So sometime between the last couple of days of November through basically through Christmas, that particular time frame occurs. So basically what we're trying to do now is figure out, okay, given the current pricing that's out there in the marketplace, what is the best possible price we can lay our hands on? And I've got some slides here, a slide deck, and I'm going to go through this because I only have 15 minutes very quickly. So forgive me if I move through some stuff pretty rapidly. The cost of electricity for your home and small businesses, if you happen to have a small business, about half of it is the local distribution charges. That's the distribution wires, local wires, and the transmission on the tall towers. That's about half of your bill on a cost per kilowatt hour basis. The other half is for energy, the cost of third-party electricity supply, and it's bid out either by the utility. If you happen to stay with the utility, you could bid it out on your own and do your own shopping, or you can participate in the aggregation for your purchases. Of that energy cost, of that 50% that remains, historically, the cost of that, 80% of that cost was the energy itself, a little bit of ancillary charges, and then generation, what's called generation capacity. Unfortunately, that number has gone materially higher, and probably for the next few years is going to be somewhere around 25% of your bill. And then the energy cost itself is also increasing markedly. Thus the reason, as Tanner succinctly put it, prices have gone a little bit bananas. So if you look at the grid, it's not just the state of Ohio, it's not just AEP Ohio. The grid itself is comprised and controlled by an entity called PJM. It covers 13 different states. There's the map there that you can see. The lighter blue is AEP Ohio territory running down into West Virginia and then into the western side of the state of Virginia as well, and then up towards southwestern Michigan as well. So this is the largest backbone transmission system in the United States. It's at 765,000 volts. The AEP transmission backbone is there, but if you look at PJM in total, for about 15 years, we've had, relatively speaking, flat demand for the amount of electricity. That's great. For every new business that came online, people are conserving, they're changing light bulbs, they're doing what they can to conserve their energy and thus reduce their energy costs, which I'm sure you all have done that here in your facilities as well. The problem is that that's no longer enough. So for every coal-fired generating station that was shut down, a natural gas-fired generation station came up, and those two things kind of balanced each other out from a price point perspective. But the fact of the matter is, over the last couple of years, as you can see from that, those demands started to rise, and we're starting to approach what we've seen in past years to get to that 160,000 megawatts of this particular summer. So end of June, I think it was 24th of June, that number hit 160,000 megawatts. And to give you a sense, Mount Vernon has 14,000 people.
17,300.
17. You probably have a demand of about 8. So to give you a sense, this is a massive amount of electricity. So 6,000 megawatts shift in demand has a substantial influence on the price of electricity, and certainly much more so to the cost of generation capacity, which is the power plants. Now PJM, which is that grid across multiple states that I mentioned a minute ago, their job is one thing and one thing only: keep the lights on for everybody all the time and not have electricity outages. And they do a good job of that, but one of the ways that they've chosen to do that in markets like Ohio and Pennsylvania and elsewhere, where you can buy your own supply, is to create this generation capacity market. And that's basically a price mechanism to pay generators to be available and contracted to stand by in the event that they are necessary to build and come online and basically create this generation access. So effectively, those are called RPM rates. And if you flip to the next page, you'll see that those RPM rates basically went from, on May the 31st, those RPM rates were $30 a megawatt day. As of June the 1st, they went to $270 a megawatt day. Now, that's not what your entire electric bill, this is a portion of your bill, but you can imagine the impact that has on your cost per kilowatt hour, and therefore the cost, whether you're buying from the utility, whether you're buying for your facilities, whether you're buying through the aggregation program. So these prices have moved materially higher. And I wish I could give you better news, but there was an auction PJM held a few weeks ago, and that number went actually even higher, went from $270 to $329. So we've got some pretty challenging circumstances. To give you a feel for it, your cost just for the generation capacity, not the energy component, which is somewhere around 6.5 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour. The generation capacity right now is about 2.3 of that. So if you went out and looked at the utility, AP Energy, they charge about 2.3 cents for the same capacity. And unfortunately, everybody has to pay this. You can't avoid this if you're buying through a utility in the state of Ohio. Everybody pays this, whether you're the biggest industrial customer to the smallest residential homeowner. Everybody pays for generation capacity. The only exception is street lights, because obviously they're not on when the grid's peaking. So unfortunately, this generation capacity charge is going higher. And the reason for that is simply economics 101, supply and demand. As I mentioned, every coal-fired plant shut down, every natural gas-fired plant comes on board, and that's all great as long as the demand doesn't start rising. The unfortunate reality, and I'm sure all of you have been reading about AI data center loads and other things that have been coming on stream, those loads are immense amounts of electric demand. That you can literally hook a power plant up to an AI data center and it may not be sufficient. To give you a feel for it, 3 Mile Island over in Pennsylvania was shut down 4 or 5 years ago, a nuclear generating plant that had run for many years. And effectively, Microsoft came in and wrote a check to the owner of that plant for $1.5 billion and said, get started, we want you to restart this thing, and then we're going to pay for the electricity. An entire power plant, and they're basically going to consume the entire electrical output of this power plant. So when these loads come on, they have started to shift the marketplace. Now, we've had a lot of, and I don't know what Knox County sees in the way of solar arrays, but there's been a lot of conversation about renewable energy, lots of conversation about that. And that's all great and everything, but there was one particular challenge associated with renewable energy assets, and that boils down to a very simple thing. It's intermittent. So you've got these large data center loads which have an ongoing 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week consumption pattern. You then have new generation coming on board, which is intermittent by its very nature. And the amount of energy that's being consumed by these facilities on a collective basis, I don't know, you probably don't follow this, I'm getting into the weeds, but AEP Ohio created an entire new rate just to deal with the AI data center loads. They have about 600 megawatts on board right now from Meta and Alphabet and these other companies. They have contracted for an additional 4,400 megawatts of electric demand in the central Ohio area, including out this direction in your area as well. And they have applications for another 30,000 megawatts. Now, the entire transmission grid on AEP Ohio, which is the most robust in the country, only has 22,000 megawatts of current demand. So there's a lot of investments that need to be made by the utilities, by the transmission grids. All of these things are rippling through, and unfortunately, your pricing, if you'd done 8 years, you'd been better off. But unfortunately, that situation is kind of what we're facing now in the marketplace. So you've got transmission costs are rising, distribution charges not so much. Generation costs, generation capacity costs, all of that stuff is increasing. So these charges are going to be materially higher than what your citizens unfortunately have gotten accustomed to and used to over the last few years. To give you a sense, I've got a chart here, and this, when I say intermittent, this is, you see this chart? So this happens to be the chart of a solar array that is at the Toledo Zoo, and we work with the Toledo Zoo and public record, so that's not a big deal to tell you that. This happened to be the week of the eclipse in 2024. So to give you a sense when I mean intermittent, you'll notice there that demand hits a little over 1,000 kW, about 1 megawatt. That's the output on a peak hour basis for that particular array. You'll also notice then on Tuesday, it was a nice sunny day, but we had the eclipse, and you'll notice what happened over a period of about 5 minutes. The electric production dropped about 75% and then immediately jumped back up as the eclipse started to fade into the woodwork. The other thing that I'll mention to you is you look at basically at Thursday and Friday that week, they were cloudy those days. And you notice those production levels were drastically reduced relative to those sunnier days. When I say intermittent, that's what I mean. Now, batteries can cover some of that. but batteries only last typically for a few hours at a time. Those technologies are still developing, so there's lots of challenges associated with the marketplace. Now, those generation facilities that I mentioned a little while ago that are natural gas fired, there's all sorts of companies now who want to build these AI data centers. And they basically understand it's called BYOG. You have to bring your own generation. Because the grid, if AEP Ohio cannot take this much power onto their grid anytime soon, they're going to have to build their own generation. So they're actually running up and down the roads, looking at the large interstate natural gas pipelines and saying, there's transmission lines about within a few miles, here's a natural gas major interstate pipeline, we want to be here. So wherever here is, they're doing all of that. So fundamentally, they're going to be building lots of new generation. There's going to be significant amounts of this constructed over the next few years. But between now and then, this is not going to be a difficult circumstance for our consumers that you're serving. Their costs are unfortunately going to go materially higher. So I tried to cover that as fast as I could and leave a few minutes for questions because I'm sure I skipped over some things and you all have questions. So
The question we're going to get is, what's materially high mean? I mean, what, and I know that you have no crystal ball, but just ballparking, how much is my utility bill going to go up?
President Hawkins, this is just based on what I see in the marketplace because we're out shopping for other communities all the time. Best guess, an average residential customer in your community uses around 9,000 kilowatt hours a year. So it's probably between $30 and $40 a month, somewhere around $35 a month would be my best guess compared to what they're paying now, assuming that they're participating in the aggregation.
Okay. That's what they'll ask us.
I know that, and I get that. I get those same questions. I understand, sir. We get those calls constantly.
So just to be clear.
Yes, sir.
The AI generation need is not necessarily affecting residential, directly, or it is.
Financially, it is. It's not going to change the fact that the lights aren't, you don't have to worry about your lights not work, your furnaces aren't running, all those kinds of things. That's not an issue. The grid's taking care of those things. Where it gets challenging is the economic reality that is now put upon us. And it's not just the AI data centers. There's lots of other stuff that you've probably read, reshoring of operations and the like that are likely to occur over the next few years. Those kinds of things are also there. You've got EV battery systems for cars and those kinds of things. That's more of a slow rolling tide. But these data centers are so large. Now, the vast majority of them, quite frankly, are not going to get constructed. They're not going to get built. But right now, the market is anticipating that a large proportion of them are. So the reality of that is that's spooking the market. And that's pushing these numbers, I believe, somewhat higher than they necessarily would need to be.
Is that, so I know that there's data centers being built at this very moment.
Yep.
Places like New Albany, Johnstown, Plain City.
Yes.
Is it because we're relationally closer to those places, than if you were someone who was in Cleveland?
No.
Like, is it a across the board increase, or is it like because we're closer to where these data centers are happening, do we carry more of a burden?
It can be relationally and locationally driven, but in this particular case, generation capacity is gone basically materially higher across the board. There has been circumstances where in the first Energy Ohio territory some years ago, probably 10 years or so ago, it blew out and AEP Ohio was not affected to the same extent. Mm-hmm. So those things can happen where it may hit your consumers here directly. I mentioned the transmission system. All of that transmission backbone that AEP Ohio is building on behalf to feed those data centers and all of the new stuff, the Intel plant and all those things, they expect that they're going to get return on investment on those transmission assets. So they're investing literally billions of dollars to feed these facilities. That's why they filed the rate case to protect all of you, all of AEP Ohio's other customers, because they said, hey, listen, if these guys decide they have new technological development, they decide they want to go somewhere else, and they pull the plug, all of a sudden, we just invested $1 billion to feed this facility, and now we're standing there, and we've got no way to pass those charges along to that consumer, and those charges then get borne by everybody else. It gets socialized among all your bills. So they actually filed that case to protect consumers in the AEP system just for that, and the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio agreed to do that. I won't get too much into the specifics. Basically, it's a 15-year understanding. You're going to cover at least 85% of those transmission costs for at least 15 years.
So,
Thanks.
Oh, go ahead.
question, what's the longest term aggregation contract we can get? And is that something that,
Well,
in your opinion, would be smart
No,
to go as
right
long as
now,
we can?
no. Right now, like we were talking about, the reason we locked in a 5-year term at that time was they were pretty static. Those numbers were pretty static that's pun wildly intended. Yeah. Those numbers were pretty, they didn't fluctuate a whole lot. And like we said, when we locked in that rate, they even dipped down a little bit. A tad there for a while, but then they shot up, pretty wildly, as you see in that chart you have there.
And we were not sure what was going to happen. This was in the height of COVID too, and so we wanted to lock in something to kind of protect us from market volatility.
And
that's why we did that long-term agreement at that time.
right. So right now, while all of these things are still in flux, we're talking about we're at the whim of market volatility. So we're going to lock in another maybe 6-month rate, maybe year rate, and see where this kind of evens out, because we don't want to lock in another 5-year term when they're at record highs. We want to give them time to come back down, and then you never know what a year or 2 or 5, or if we did, we'd be in very different. I think we'd all be in very different jobs, right?
Yeah.
Be playing the.
To specifically answer your question, the longest aggregation supply agreement I've ever seen, Councilman, is 9 years in length. And that was a percentage off the price to compare. So it was a specific, you were still floating with the market, and everybody was just buying a little bit cheaper than what they would otherwise have paid the utility. Unfortunately, the company that offered those doesn't offer those anymore. We've seen some of those offers, but there's too much volatility in the market to make anybody comfortable in that kind of a situation. And even if it were offered and they said, hey, we'll give you 5% off for the next 9 years, I still would not recommend you all accept that, because if the wholesale price starts to fall and you've locked in and the utility price to compare doesn't decline as rapidly, you're going to have a lot of angry customers. So it's our thought process at this point is to go shorter term at these really high prices and see how things evolve. Part of the challenge we've got is we've got a lot of generation, we've got a lot of moving parts, and the unknown outcome of all those remains to be seen. But I don't think that it could well go higher, but from my perspective, your thought process, can we beat the utility? And if we can beat AEP's price to compare, then we're saving our customers money. It may not be as much money as we want, but it's saving them some money. And if you can't beat the utility, then you say, maybe we need to reconsider whether we want to continue this, and we may want to push the pause button on the program.
It seems like when we first got into aggregation, we had two choices. One was a fixed amount and one was a flexible amount.
Yep.
Which one are you recommending?
Right. Well, we're not making a specific recommendation today because I know that conversation has yet to be had. Those prices, we've not gotten those back yet. But fundamentally, this is probably going to be a fixed price, but only for a shorter period of time. And unfortunately, Tanner, we can't go 6. We're not allowed to by PUCO rules. We have to go a minimum of 12 months for residential customers, unless it's a variable price, in which case I wouldn't recommend.
All right, I am a few minutes over. Does anybody else have any questions?
I did want to add one thing. Sorry, Councilman, but one of the things that we hadn't talked. One of the things that we really also appreciated about Palmer is they're in 77 of the counties.
Yes.
They're doing a lot of, and the government aggregation procurement is their specialty. But what really was kind of the tipping point for us is that they also represent Fredericktown, and we can also get on the same schedule at the end of the year. And so it would be, I don't know how many accounts there are in Fredericktown, but it would be us and Fredericktown. Hopefully, it might help a little bit. We can certainly hope. And so that was one of the things that kind of was leaning us toward going with Palmer.
It's essentially building that larger portfolio with Fredericktown and the city of Mount Vernon going in together. So,
You could potentially even take it further. We work with Licking County, Muskingum County as well, so we could, if Knox County and yourselves are interested in that, we could potentially extend beyond that. But that's
All right.
completely up to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruckman. We're going to adjourn that committee. Going to move again back to your committee for the OPWC Aggregation Fund for the West End Sanitary Sewer.
So I was eating into my own time, so I'm going to forgive myself. Anyways, yeah, we are doing PWC aggregation funds for the West End sanitary sewer, so we are going to be talking about that. Is that you this evening? Good, sir. Please step up to the mic.
Good evening, council. I'm Quentin Platt, Assistant City Engineer, for those of you who don't know me. I don't make my way up here very often, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. So this is a project for sanitary replacement. This would be on Adams Street. The project would start around High Street and then go south to Maplewood, which is in the Arch Avenue Park area. We would also like to replace an extension of, or a section of Gambier Street, West Gambier Street, from Adams Street east to somewhere around where the railroad tracks are, at the Farmers Co-op. So what we're asking for here is permission to apply for this OPWC grant. There is actually a portion of this that goes, it's not in Clinton Township, but there are properties in Clinton Township. I believe there are 6 or 7 houses on Adams Street that are not in the city. They're not annexed, they're in the township. And so this would be a joint project with Clinton Township as well, where we would be taking the lead on it, and then they would be a partner with us on that. So currently we do have a design. We are looking at, am I talking about the right project here? West End Sanitary? Okay. I'm getting some odd stares here, like people are really
Well,
confused.
the thing about it is that we recently talked to them about the sanitary sewer project where Clinton Township is the primary and we're supporting them.
Gotcha.
And this is just the flip of that.
Yes.
And so because of that, that might be some of the staring.
Okay.
But by having Clinton Township partner with us, it gives extra points to our application.
Correct.
And makes it more likely that we will be funded.
Yes. So we would be looking at applying for somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000. As I was starting to say, we do have a design. We do need to do a little bit more investigation before the design is finalized. And then we'll have a better estimate on the project. But somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000 is what we're looking at. And we like to follow up with a CDBG application to pretty much fund the rest of the project. We'll need to put in a minimum of 5% cash as a city into the project, and we're hoping to keep under 10%. So we're looking at about 5 to 10% of the city paying for this project.
Putting this up for a second reading tonight, is there any rush on this? Is the next meeting okay to vote on that?
We'd be okay with going 3 readings, absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
council, this is not to be confused with the OPWC request for the Crystal Avenue water line project. Yep.
That's up for third reading.
Which, correct.
Different project, so.
Yep.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice?
Okay. You made up with your time there.
I did.
A few minutes to.
2 minutes to spare. Thank you, Quentin.
Reserve. Okay, we'll move now to fire, police, and civil defense for the cybersecurity policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this is ordinance number 2528. It's up for its second reading on page 39 of your packet. Mr. Sawyers, I believe you were going to have someone from the county IT department come explain.
Oh, not just anyone, the one.
The one. You are the one. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm Kyle Webb, the Chief Information Officer for Knox County and subsequently the city. This is part of House Bill 96 that the state passed, and now it's ORC 9.64. So what it's telling all municipalities, city governments, any political subdivision is that you have to have some kind of cybersecurity policy in place. some things that they required, some stipulations that they flat out say you have to have. Others, it just has to try to meet and conform to national standards in cybersecurity. So this is kind of a, you know, a nice framework for a policy. It's a good start. You can always get more specific with things, but this definitely meets the recommendations of the state. The big things the state mostly is concerned about is ransomware and payments. So what this bill states is if the city or any subdivision was hit with ransomware and you have to report it within 7 days to the Ohio Department of Public Safety, and then I believe I think it's in, I don't have it right in front of me. I think it's like 2 months to the auditor state. But inside of this, the other part that they're big on is if you're going to pay a ransom for ransomware, if you're an attack, it has to come to legislation. You cannot make that payment without it being legislatively passed in front of a public body. I think the state wanted to push back and say, you know, you need to secure your systems. If you have a breach, then it's got to be public, and you've got to pass that by legislation so people can ask questions, I guess. A lot of it is something, you know, obviously most of these things were already being done, all these controls in place. It's just a formal policy. It's just formalizing it, having it written down, so you can point to it and say, here's our policy. And that's really all they care about. They're not even, as bad as it is, they're not really auditing this. The state's saying you just have to have a policy, you have to say you have a policy, but we're not really going to check to see if you're actually following your policy, which I think is where these things fall apart, because it's the state kind of saying, hey, do this, we don't really care if you actually do it, we just want to say that you did it and checked a box. So I hope that more places go above and beyond and actually follow the policies that they create. This is a good step. It gets people thinking about it, it gets it in front of them, and so I appreciate that the state is moving in that direction. You know, in typical state fashion, though, it isn't, you know, one of their unfunded mandates that they love to pass down to municipalities and government, but it is what it is. But I think this is a good start. It follows the law requirements, and like I said, we can always get more specific with formal written policies and procedures internally, but this is a good policy framework to meet the requirements.
So that's what the state's requiring, or not requiring, I should say. What we have been doing internally is what we established the Municipal Tech Board. We meet monthly. We kind of identify things on a department by department basis, roll out upgrades and things like that. We work hand in hand with the IT department over at the county, which is like Mr. Webb said, that's who we contract with. Right now, actually, you see revised and renewed IT contract in front of you for, you know, to re-up that. We appreciate our partnership with County IT. We want to do that again. But other than that, they're kind of our folks that we lean to when we have any sort of IT questions. But you can come down through here like he's talked about, you know, monitoring and logging and risk assessment, access control, MFAs, which is a big one, which has gone over like a lead balloon here internally. These are some of the things.
This is what's responsible for me having to do that.
Yes.
Sorry, John. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. We have already started, without the state telling us to do this, we have already started a lot of these things internally, because one, it's a best practice and a good thing to do to secure yourself. And number two, there's a lot of things as far as your insurance is requiring that you have to do, or you're not going to be covered anyway. So, you know, and it's sad to say that the insurance is a little bit more stringent than the state, but that it is what it is. They don't want to pay out either. So we've locked that down. You know, the city has had issues in the past with the prior vendor. So we've moved on there and started cleaning a lot of that up. And we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, so we've learned from that and are making sure that we're, locking the door behind us. How about that? So, do you have any questions? I know this can be, if you're not intimately aware of some of these phrases.
So if we get into a cybersecurity issue, insurance does cover that?
Depending on how we handle it, yes.
That leads me to a question. So you mentioned that this is a good start, and it's maybe not as specific as it could be. I think, and this is not my area of expertise, but you could write a policy that's so specific that it would be difficult to follow, and then you'd be liable for not following it. So we're looking for that balance. If I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So
That the balance between being reasonable, meeting requirements, and yet not being so specific, writing a policy that we can't even follow ourselves.
yeah, you don't want to tie your hands to the point where you can't make changes without it coming back through and getting amended. Things like it mentions here is like incident response plan. Like those are the things that you can be very detailed about. And this just references it. So that's a good thing. So you can be as specific as you want. You can change as much as you want. You can be flexible with what you need on that. And those are the parts that are really important is, things like incident response. So it says it has your phone numbers of who to call when. If you can't get a hold of someone, this is the second number you call. If you can't get a hold of them, who's in charge, what you do for each type of incident, those types, who you notify, and has those numbers listed so you're not searching around trying to find it. It's all together in one packet, and that's something we'll work through. And as a matter of talking to every department and saying who's your go-to person, if something happens, who's the first person we contact, and getting that written into a formal policy and plan. And again, this references it, and it's good that that's not part of the overall ordinance, so you're not stuck following something that might have names that don't matter, numbers that don't work, and those kinds of things.
So an operational policy will have
Yeah.
more detail than this general. Let's see.
This is a floor and not a ceiling. I can already tell you that there is one thing that needs changed in here, and that is that in Section 8, the Utilities Director has been designated it's kind of like our lone survivor. Apparently Aaron missed a meeting and we just made him in charge of everything. Now, that should say the Safety Service Director. So that'll teach him to not.
Does that mean there'll be an amended version of this coming next week?
We'll ask for an amendment, yes.
Yeah.
Anything else? While we have you here.
Yeah.
And a related topic, we're changing our MountVernonOhio.org, we're changing all that. We're changing some of the things that council has to do as far as our correspondence and our email. What do I need to do?
So you should basically on October 1st is our go live date. You will just sign in with the .gov email address. Your password's the same. Everything's the same. It's just the username that you put in is slightly different. Everything after the @ symbol, you're going to go to use the .gov email address instead. All your past emails are going to be there. People can still email the old address. Obviously, we want to push towards the new address. Everything you send out will come from the .gov, which is what the federal government and all the standards say for government should be coming from a .gov. So that's the new standard. So it's pretty simple. It's just if it asks you to sign back in, you just put in your regular username, but instead of at MountVernonOhio.org, it's mtvernon .gov. Yeah.
And when I go on the radio and I tell people they want to watch city council, you go to MountVernonOhio.org. If they want to see the city council meetings, what will they go to?
Well, you can still go there. They're both going to go to the same place.
Okay.
So the old stuff still works.
mtvernonh.gov.
mtvernonh.gov.
Because there are, fun fact, 11 Mount Vernons, 9 Knox counties. And we asked the federal government, this is your federal government, folks, we asked the federal government if we could be mtvohio.gov, and they said no. People might confuse us with Mount Vernon, Ohio.
Okay.
Yep, I made
who
that
we are.
same pause too. I could see why people would be confused by that, yeah. So that's how we became mtvernonoh.gov. That's the story.
So by October 1st, we're going to be right on top of it.
Mr. President, I feel I've lost control of my council committee meetings
I thought we were done, that's why I asked him that.
several minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
council.
We're going to adjourn that committee meeting. We're now in recess until 7:30 PM. We begin the legislative portion of the meeting.